In today's video, we're going to go ahead and look at page 50 in my book, which is, which type of timpani are you working on? You need to know this so that when you go ahead and order a head, you're ordering the correct head for the correct model, make, all those kinds of good things that you might get asked from the store that you're ordering the head from on the other end of the telephone. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through the different things about the timpani that you should know, and we'll go ahead and get started with that with the overhead view. In this segment, I'll also be referring to my jig. Here we go. A regular collar pre-1978, and the pre-1978 regular collar refers to the measurement from the edge of the chrome rim to the top edge of the lip of the bowl, or that bearing edge. So in a regular collar pre-1978, that measurement's usually going to be around a ½ inch. Okay, so that's what will designate a timpani as being a regular collar head timpani. While over here on the newer timpani, we have an extended collar. After 1978, the company started to standardize, and the extended collar will measure somewhere around 1 inch between the edge of the rim and the edge of the bowl. So these are two measurements to know which kind of timpani you're dealing with. This will be a question that most of the time when you call in to order a head, a question that they will ask, what kind of collar do you have? Okay, so from there, we can now go to using the jig and showing how the jig will then answer further questions on the head. So if you've watched my jig video, I'm lining my jig up as I've showed in my other videos, and the head that would be ordered for this Yamaha timpani is a 3100. And again, if you've watched my timpani jig video, you know that the 3100 refers to the Remo numbers, and the 31 would refer to the Evans chart numbers. So here is how that is determined by using the jig. So now you were able to come up with another answer for ordering your head. The reason why you want to be as accurate as you can be is, in the most part, timpani heads are not returnable and can be a pain. And that does differ from region to region wherever you're at. Okay, so make sure that you even ask that question when you're ordering your timpani heads. And then the second part to follow up on my jig, to just kind of reiterate, is the other side when it comes to tuning your head. A reminder that you can flip your jig over, and I've now lined it up from the bowl edge to bowl edge, as I've talked about in my other video. And this happens to be a 28-inch bowl, and you would tune this bowl from G to D. So this is another example of how useful this jig is and how it can be answering a lot of questions and alleviating a lot of headaches when it comes to ordering your timpani head. So valuable information for you to hopefully help you when that time comes. And today we're going to go ahead and focus on measuring the Timpani flesh hoop and counter hoop so that you're ordering that correct head. We're going to be looking at those measurements and using the jig. And again, if you have a copy of my book, we're looking at page 51. So from our video, I talked about and showed the whole thing with the jig and measuring and things like that. And if you didn't look at that one, go ahead and jump over and look at that one. And you'll be able to use the information from both to gain a better understanding of where I'm going with all these things on page 51 and 52. So ordering that and measuring that head, I'm going to go ahead and stick this Yamaha head on top. Now you can see the flesh hoop and everything like that. And per page 51, to measure the head off of the Timpani using my jig, you just line it up to the outside edge of the aluminum flesh hoop. And in this case, this head that I have removed here, this Yamaha head, is a 2800. Okay, so that's simply that measurement. I showed you in the previous videos how to measure without taking the head off, but here's what it looks like off. And I can even flip it over to give you kind of another perspective. Outside of the aluminum flesh hoop, 2800. Okay, so like I said, this jig has not let me down. Okay, so that's measuring the actual head itself. The head might be off because somebody tried to repair them and do something in the band room. Maybe a parent worked on, didn't know what they were doing. So this would be the time to be measuring all this stuff, is when it's off. So it's kind of giving you two perspectives of with the head on and measuring it, with the head off and measuring it. Okay, so I apologize if I'm being like over redundant. Okay, so here's a Timpani rim flipped upside down, and that's how it's illustrated on page 51. It'd be upside down, and you would go and take the measurement with my Timpani jig from the lug to the lug, and in this case, this is not the rim to that head that I just showed you and measured. This is a different one, but in this case, this is a 2700. So a 2700 Remo or 27 Evans would fit in this hoop. Okay, so that is how simple it is to go ahead and measure your head and your flesh hoop. We're going to try to cover the last few things from pages 52 to 54 and 57 in the book that we haven't went into, and that is the changing and leveling of the head, addressing any wrinkles and how I go about doing that, and then talking about the pedal heel and toe, and then a couple little small things that I do, like labeling the head for future knowledge, and Timpani covers. Just a little brief wrap up there at the end. So that's kind of the plan. We'll go to the overhead cameras, and I have a foot camera for the pedal. So like in one of my other videos, I'll do overhead and the pedal, and you won't see me, but you'll hear me. We'll come right back. All right, so I have the overhead and the pedal view set up for you. So what we have here is we have a Yamaha Timpani. This one happens to be a 28-inch bowl, and the head is a 3100 according to our Timpani jig. I have it written up here, and I do this with all of my Timpani. Once they're set and the heads are changed and everything, I do this. I let the customer know that I do it, just so that future reference, it's done for them. What I set it at, its range that I set it at, and again, the head number, 3100. Okay, so this Yamaha Timpani, it is a, specifically, it's a TP 6200 model, for those of you that may know your models. It's a 6200 model. Anyway, the problem with this one is it doesn't hold the pedal. All right? So I'm going to be doing multiple things. I know I said head changes, leveling, wrinkles, all that stuff. It's going to kind of all be hodgepodge into one. So if I had this head off, I did all my cleaning. I talk about a lot of those kinds of different things in my other videos. I've done the cleaning. I've done the Teflon tape. This is the 1/2-inch Teflon tape. This particular Yamaha has Teflon on it already, but I would be Teflon taping it. I would be talking to my customer about that upgrade, and if they want the costs involved with that. I have my 3100 head, brand new. I have all my stuff off. I've cleaned everything. So I've set my head on there. I've set my rim on there. I've brought all of my tension rods up to finger tight, and then I've started to bring them up until I can get the low fundamental pitch. And for this one, it is an F. Okay? So in this case, to get the low fundamental pitch, we have to have the heel down. Okay? So this one's not holding a heel. So what that tells you is, okay, if it's not holding, and like I said, when you're bringing your new head into tension, you're going around with your fingers, and then you're going to these to set your low tension. If it's starting to, as you tighten, if that head or that pedal starts to move, you're headed in the right direction. So in this case, we want to see why this one's not wanting to hold its fundamental, okay? And notice as I push it down, there's a bunch of wrinkles right here through this field where I'm rubbing my hand. This Timpani head needs tension. So rather than just go shooting in the dark on where I need tension, I want to start looking at the tension rods, and I want to start looking at my spacing in the collar area here. So this is an extended collar Timpani. I'm going to start looking at my height here. So to help you with that, I'm going to pull my jig out, get these out of the way. So I'm going to start looking at the spacing that is between the top of the rim and my jig, my flat edge. And I'm going to start looking at which lug is the lowest. That'll tell me that's the one that has the most tension. And I'm just kind of doing that. All right. So this guy right here is showing me that it is the lowest. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen my Timpani jig screw and back my jam nut, my knurled knob, And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this until the pointer touches the top of the rim. Okay, so we reset the camera for you to show you a close-up of what I'm about to do. So this was the tension rod that I determined was the lowest out of all of them. So I'm setting the screw to where it just touches. Give myself a little bit more there to where it just touches. And you might be able to see over here, I'll run it a little high for you. It lifts off the lip of the bowl. So that's how the jig really works, is it uses the two corresponding lips of the bowl to give you a true level. So you can see the height there. So I'll back it back down to where I'm at. Okay, so we're just making contact. So I'm going to hold it still and lock it. So now I have my measurement. So now I'm going to deem this lug number 1. Now I'm going to go flip this and go 1 to 2, 2 to 3, etc., etc. All right, so we reset. I'm at number 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go from 1 to 2. Okay. Now I'm going to go and look at my gap. And what it is, what I'm seeing under here is this is touching and I have a gap right here. Okay? So I need to lower this. So I'm going to move it out of my way. And I'm going to go ahead and add tension until the rim, I'm going back and forth just a little bit right there until it just touches like it did over here. So I've done 1 and 2. I now know that they are exactly level with each other. Okay? So now I'm going to go from 2. Again, the bowl we know is level. So again, we're high. So I'm going to move it off to the side a little bit. And I'm going to add tension until I get my reading. Right there. Okay? And I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around the drum, going in the direction that I need to go, which is tightening, adding tension. So hopefully, I'm going to make sure I stand out of the way. I'm just I'm getting a little more life in the pedal here after 1, 2, 3 lugs, now 4. Okay, so we're good there. Okay. Two more to go. All right, this one's so high that I can teeter-totter it. Okay. So adding slowly. And see, this is what if you were to take this jig into the band room, let's say the band director says they're having a hard time with the pedals, this is what you can do in the band room. This one was extreme. Little too much. I'm going to take it back about a quarter turn. Okay, there we go. And to okay, so looks like the pedal, and that's why I got the camera on the pedal, so even though I might not be watching it totally, you may be able to watch it split because I'm watching my gauge. All right. Okay. And the last one right here. And again, like I was saying, you run these down with your fingers. You've changed the head, you've run these down with your fingers, and you've taken your, I like using 2 wrenches. You've started bringing your tension up, and you notice your heels start to move, and you're able to move the pedal a little bit. And this is where you start tuning your fundamental low note, and then seeing if you can get a toe from your fundamental low note. Okay, so I've gone around to all of them, finished all the way around. We're level. So now the moment of truth with the pedal. Let's see if we can get heel down. Heel down. And is it staying? It stayed. Okay. Toe. We got almost full toe. Yep. And that was just simply by finding the lowest lug, which was here, and using my leveling jig to level it all out and get equal tension back on everything. Okay, so we have the pedal working, and like I said, this is the same thing that you would do. Like I said, you're changing a head, you got the new head on there, your finger tightening everything up. You're going to start by getting that low fundamental. Okay, so the low fundamental on this drum is usually G. Yamaha can sometimes go down to the F, as is indicated for this model. So I have my tuner set to an F. Yeah, it's in the ballpark. Ringing sharp. Okay. And our high end's supposed to be a D. And the pedal is holding. Now, lug to lug. It should be pretty darn close because your leveling jig should get you there. Maybe you have to fine tune each lug. Maybe you have to fine tune each lug an eighth of a turn, but that's really in the ballpark right there. Okay, and we have full pedal. Yeah, the G is sharp and ringing sharp. Yeah, it's got a pretty decent ring and tone to it. It does have that weird after ring. Okay. So those are all things that we can fine tune, an eighth of a turn here, there, just keep working on it. Okay, brand new head. The other thing I do with brand new heads, I go to the heel down, and it's the same method I use on my snare drums and things like that. I call it the CPR, because everything is brand new. When you start working the pedal, the glue and everything's going to snap, crackle, and pop. Okay, so to help that and help the seating of it, I got everything nice the first time. Low ends tuned, high ends tuned. So now I'm going to do some CPR. Again, low position, and all I'm going to do is just give it some real gentle compressions to just kind of stretch it. Just a little bit. Not getting crazy with it, to try to help seat and stretch that head just a little bit, because a brand new head, you're going to be chasing it for about a week, fine tuning. So if you have the shop space, that's one thing. You get the heads on, you're going to want to keep them around for a few extra days just to let things seat, so that you can then re-fine tune them a couple of days later, because you'll store them for like a day with the pedal, with the toe all the way up. That's what I do, the toe all the way up, so that they get stretched after you've done the CPR and everything. And then you go out and you see where your low fundamental is. Bam, bam, bam. Do your tuning with your tuner. Okay? So that's kind of like follow-up and everything. All right. So let's say you've done all that, and let's say, let's talk about something else. Say you have a really stubborn wrinkle along the bowl edge here, okay? And we've had those before, where when you operate the pedal, that wrinkle will start to crinkle and sound like a bag of potato chips, okay? So you just grab your heat gun, whatever heat gun you have, and put it on a low heat setting. It doesn't need to be real hot. Low heat setting, and you're going to fan that area way far away. Just take your time and feel with your hand, because you don't want to burn and melt the mylar. Nice and even. Okay, and you'll see that wrinkle start to dissipate. It'll suck up and draw up. Okay, almost like when you would do shrink wrap on a storm window. Same idea. Okay, so that's what you would do with wrinkles. Same on snare drums, drum set heads, any kind of head that'll wrinkle up on you, and you want to take that wrinkle out. You use a heat gun, low setting. Okay, and then so got everything good. I've used either petroleum jelly, or I've used Tri-Flow on all of the moving parts. Petroleum jelly on the lugs, or even the red box slide grease, like I've showed in my previous videos. The materials video covers a lot of that. Make sure that you lubricate and do all your spots. Director, so the information's always there, and they know what to call me. I need a 3100. That's there. The only other thing that I do that is totally optional is I'll take the Sharpie and I'll come in the approximate 3 inches from the playing area right here, and I'll put from this lug to this lug, I'll use the old drum head, and I'll draw a curved line right here in the playing area. So those are just additional little things that I offer band directors. It helps, especially if it's a junior high beginning band situation where he's teaching his percussionist. Just a few extra little service things to do along with talking to them about the Teflon tape option. To finish up here on the Yamaha, talk about covers. This is the cover from Yamaha. All the covers are great. You want to make sure that you get a cover on them, whether it's store-bought or if simply you have cut out a round circle out of a heavy cardboard, like out of a refrigerator box or a washer or dryer box, that you've cut your own circle out, and simply go to the fabric store and get yourself some felt yardage, spray glue or Elmer's glue or some kind of spray glue, whatever, onto the cardboard. Put the felt on one side, cut it. You can wrap tape around the edge, whatever. Maybe you have a band bomb or something, but definitely get some covers on them to keep the punctures from happening. And you know, it turns into a place to set stuff down. We all know that. If we don't police it, it still gets set on there. So we need to get something on our Timpani to protect them, especially if you invested a bunch of money in getting new heads put on them. As just my last 2 cents is for high school Timpani should have the nicer Timpani heads, the Renaissance, which is what this is, what this Yamaha head is. It's a Renaissance fiber skin type of head. For junior high and stuff, the usual stock opaque white head that comes on the Timpani is good for junior high. Of course, we all know there's some upper end junior highs out there that play as well as high schools. By all means, put the good heads on them. You have to judge by your budget and the talent of your program. Okay, so 2 cents about the Yamaha. I'm going to talk about the Ludwig briefly, the old Ludwig, because a lot of us have some antique Ludwigs out there too. I'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll wrap up this all things Timpani section. All right, so we are back, and I brought the antique. This is the one that if you watch the Dent videos, and if you watched all these videos, I've used the same 2 Timpani. This old antique Ludwig, this was not working. It was in the back of one of our high school band rooms where I work. It literally, it's got a broken heel on the pedal. It's a hurting unit. It was garbage to them. So I literally brought it home so I could use it for these videos. You would never put a used head on it. I grabbed the used head out of my stash. I found some tension rods and stuff for it. And literally, as much as we want to write these guys off, it came back. It's got pedal. It's holding its heel, even though the heel's broken off, and it's holding its toe relatively. A little bit more fine adjusting on the toe. And I did the exact same things that I walked through. I literally put the head on. I wiped it down a little bit from our Dent video the other day, but I literally put the head on, put the rim on, put the tension rods in finger tight. I did the jig leveling, and the only other thing that I played around with is the balance action knob right here. So it's not holding the toe all the way. So on the balance action knob, it needs a little bit more toe. So I would turn it to the right. So I'll give it some more toe and put a full turn into it. It's holding the toe a little bit better with that full turn. To the left is if you need more heel. So I'm going to check the heel on this guy. It's got a little hitch in it that, again, I would address it. Most likely the hitch is coming from, there could be, the rod could be out of adjustment. Like I said, this guy was in the boneyard. They were going to get rid of it for scrap. I wagged it home for these videos. Okay, so F to C is our approximate range for this guy. Okay, so I didn't want to spend a ton of time on this way, but I will turn it so that I'll show you what I do underneath. And we'll zoom in on that toe a little bit. There we go. And you may be able to see it, but I label these. I put the curved arrow across the top. And to the left is heel, and to the right is toe. I'll light that up a little bit, see it, so you can try to see it a little bit. But I write that right on there. So as part of the learning requirement, even for my class, is, you know, they got to learn a little bit on how they play the instrument, of course, and the adjustments. So I just learned to write on them. I always ask the band director if it's okay. Most of them say yes. I very rarely get a no that I can't write on their timpani, because in the long run, it totally helps them. And it's just one more of those customer service things that, you know, they'll love you for, okay? And it only takes a few extra seconds to do that stuff for them. If they're really cool with it, and you have a black paint pen, just go ahead and write it in a black paint pen, then it's even better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and roll this back around. If you didn't notice right off the bat, again, I wrote on the head the size and the range, and on this one, I did a placement marking for an example that I talked about earlier on the Yamaha. So it can be done on these older ones, same techniques. It's basically balance action knob, heel, toe, and setting your low fundamental, and then working towards your toe. And lastly, the thing that makes this all that much faster and easier is my jig. So there we go. We're going to be looking at how I go about dents. This is from page 56 in the book. Before we jump into that, I'm going to cover a little bit about some of the things that I use in removing dents and all those kinds of good things. So we'll start off over here and just kind of work myself around. Way over here on the far side, I have my slip tape, my magnetic dent ball set. I'll discuss a little bit about that. So that's an option for smaller dents and things that I have used and acquired over the years. I have some various shapes, and some of these things will look familiar to you from the other videos that I've made. There's some carryover from one to the other. And then here's the red wing tool that I discussed in another video about dents. Burnishing tools for working on lip dents and some of the smaller bowl dents to be able to smooth some of those things out. Burnishing tools will work well. Also, another new item that I didn't cover in some of the videos was some files, some real fine files, so that if there is a burr on a lip or something on the bowl, it can get filed away. have a really, really heavy dent, I'll close the jaws of the crescent wrench if I really have to move something. Again, knife hex, all parallel pliers, things like that. And then just a wide array of various hammers. I covered these hammers in previous videos, like the dead blows, all Harbor Freight stuff, making sure that we put the covering, the slip cover on there for marring and things like that. I keep them highly polished on the buffing wheel, and I have one that I don't use protection on if I have to use it in a way where I'm pushing, if I do need to get in there and tap. Various other Delrin or nylon hammers that I've made. This is a leather workers mallet. I believe I got that one at Hobby Lobby. And then some different ones that I've made to fit in particular situations that I came across. So I tried to make, like this hammerhead, I made it oversized so that I can unscrew it and take it off, stick it in the lathe real quick, turn it down to get in to somewhere, do different things too if I need to get in a situation. So just some other different ones that I've made. Down here on the finishing side, for finishing the outside of the bowl where there might be some exposed copper where the lacquer has a scratch or abrasion, or from the fact that you've moved and hammered out a section and it's flaked off, I use the Brasso, and you can do the Brasso by hand, but I actually took from the Atlanta 2019 conference, I actually took a tip and modified it and modified my own spin on it, so to speak. So I was at a conference, Dan King at KBI Music in Fredericksburg, Virginia. He did, what was it? I think it was The Next MacGyver, or some kind of MacGyver was the title of his class. And he talked about vibrating cutters and modifying all the grindings off so they're smooth, and wrapping craft, peel and stick craft felt, peel and stick craft foam. So that's what I did. I went and took his idea. So I have a layer of craft foam and a layer of felt, and then I was using his idea and doing all that, and then I took an idea from rewrapping my bass drum mallets and actually gave it to my wife because she has a really fancy sewing machine, and she makes these little lamb's wool covers for me to put over the tool to sit there and buff it out. Variable speed does all the work. Once I went and added this on to his idea over this added the cushion, and then this added all the polishing element to it. Use it to get in between crooks and tubes and stuff on the low brass and middle brass. Works great on the instruments. The only thing, I peeled it off, but the only thing on instruments is I'll put a covering over right here, so when we're working in there, we don't bump. But that's something to share as a tip for you too on Timpani. So we're going to go ahead now and move to our overhead shot into the bowl. And so I have an overhead shot for the bowl, and I have an outside shot. So you won't see me a lot. You'll just hear me talking, and we'll work through all these different dents, and I'll make sure to show you what tool I'm using, what I'm doing. So we'll move to those shots now. Okay, we're back. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this really large dent that's right here. It's got some creases in it, and it's got just a bunch of different peaks and valleys to it. So I try to, as much as I can to travel in a circular motion or a cross motion to kind of move the dent around. And I let my hand that is on the outside also kind of dictate which way I'm going with this. So if you've done body and fender work on a car, you should be pretty comfortable with this. It's the same kind of techniques. Okay, anyway, here we are. So I'm going to take my dead blow. I always use my dead blows to try to get most of the movement and a lot of the large parts down. So I'm just going to start. I'm using my protected side, and here we go. Excuse me for if it's real loud. Again, my hand's on the other side, as you can see, and I'm going to move it out of the way this time so you can watch it move. I'm being careful of the spider gear. I'm staying up and down. I'm going to go ahead and feel progress. Trying to keep the mallet as flat as I can so that I don't put a peak in the dent. So I'm starting to run into where my knuckles are getting close right here. So now this is where we go to our aids. This is where a hockey puck is in real handy. Use the curve side. Now it gets your knuckles and everything away from the dent. And I'm just using the curve side of the hockey puck with the curve side of the bowl. And the outer camera, you should be able to watch the progress. Oh, I got the spider gear there a little bit. Just keep on that. And again, I'm doing most of this with a dead blow. This is a 1 pound dead blow. Okay, so now I'm going to check my progress outside. Make sure that I'm not moving it actually out. Still got a lot to go. Okay, so now I'm working on some of these veins of the dent or the creases that have popped out right here. Just kind of working that way. That one got a lot of good movement right there. Okay, so for the most part, we got things going. I'm going to do a last few here. And at this point, I could move to a little bit different hammer. I'm going to try this guy with my hockey puck as the cushion on the outside. Now I'm feeling on the inside, outside. That moved it, but I'm gonna try the rawhide this time, see what kind of movement I get with rawhide. Decent movement with the rawhide. These straight ones that were out here had quite a peak to them. So that's what I'm trying to work on, that peak. So I'm using, as you can see where it's dark right here, I'm using that edge, and that's Looks like I went a little far out here, and that's fine. You can come out here. But I can see by looking at the reflection out here on the outside, yeah, a lot more to go. Okay, so just kind of showing you that. Now, and I know that the paint is flaking off here. Once you put the opaque head on here, you're never going to see that. Use the burnisher to push some of the high points down. A lot of times, again, techniques are all different. A lot of times I will do hammer on hammer. So I have a peak right there. I have the on here. So you can go hammer on hammer to move stuff. So another technique, I'm just showing you hammer on hammer technique, besides using the hot puck that we did earlier to hammer on, is modified pieces of wood. This one is just curved, kind of like an airplane wing, with craft felt to cushion it. And a lot of times I'll use it in the same fashion. And I use it on that flat curve. You see me moving down, because this is a pretty big dent. All right. So that's another type of tool or jig or apparatus. Instead of the hammer on hammer, you can get a block of wood, make sure that the edges are curved over. And so like for this dent right here, I could put it right here, out of the way. So the last piece I want to show you on the bowl is once you get the dents down and somewhat flat, this is where your magnetic dent system will be handled. A 3-inch ball, and then my magnet that I have has protection tape wrapped around it. So here I am with the drum head, and I'm going to go ahead and come in. It's got the protection tape on it. And so that whole area now, using only magnetic ball system. Okay, and I found it's really good. It's that protection tape that I talked about from McMaster Carr. It's really nice. It's slick. It's smooth. I really use a lot of the pledge, but yes, you can still shoot some pledge on there. All those kinds of great things. But again, don't use your magnetic dent balls to try to just get all of the dents down. Okay? So there's a little bit about the magnetic dent balls. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the lip of the bowl. And if there's a dent in the lip of the bowl, there's a bunch of different tools I use and techniques. So if it's a dent, sometimes you can grab bills and get up on. Same with the parallel pliers. And you can move that lip around. It is a double bearing edge or lip, so you know, it will take some tugging to get it moved around. And again, start with the wide jaws, get the biggest part of it moved, and again, you can fit the crescent wrench on there and get it moved too with the crescent wrench. and then fine tune with the small jaws in this. So you have some options there with your parallel pliers, your duckbill pliers, and your crescent wrench to get it moved up into position. Now, once you get it in position, there might be a wave or something that you have to work on. Now, there's a few different ways. You can work the wave with the hammer, getting it to move, the wave to move up a little bit more, and you can try, you can even try using the lip puller to move the whole thing up, with moving it up and working the wave with this cool tool from Red Wing. So you can sit and slide hammer that up too. That works on the wave. Fine tuning the wave even more, I've used my Dent machine bell dies. So either one of these, depending on what I'm working on. If I need to get up close with something, I'll use the point. If I a longer edge to work on, I'll use this. Now I can sit here and I use a and this gives me a nice stable back against that copper to sit there and move. Then I can flip it around for wider ones, and it's already curved to help you with the radius. Okay, so that's the smaller one. You just find what fits to help you those to get it smoothed out. So those are the Ferrees. Now, the burnishers, if I've been working on this and I want to try to get it smooth because maybe I feel just a bit of hammer dent, I'll go ahead and put my petroleum jelly on here, and I'll sit here and I'll work and burnish with my small burnisher. If I really need to get some pressure going, I'll grab my other Ferree's burnisher and work it. Okay? So I do use the burnishers on the lips. Okay? Then let's say we have a burr. Maybe we have just a little bit of a burr that's sticking up that would slice and cut through the head. We want to make sure to go to our fine, that nice and I spread it out. That's blending. Okay, so I'm just trying to blend, and I'm not doing a lot of pressure. It's just really light pressure, letting the file. You'll feel the file grab. Okay, and then let your fingers feel where that burr was. Okay, you want to make sure that this is nice and smooth. And you can wet sand it if you want to really get it down there smooth. I've been successful with the files. But yeah, you can wet sand it, steel wool it to even take it down even more to finer grits and smooth it out. That's up to you. Okay, so there's some file work on the lips. Okay, so we've done our bowl dents, we've done our lip dents, we've talked about filing, making sure that everything's great. At this point, this will be some crossover into the tuning one, but I'll start talking about it now. Is this is where you could upgrade the Timpani. Talk to your customer. This is where you could upgrade your Timpani and put the adhesive Teflon tape that I will be talking about from McMaster Carr. So there's a Teflon tape that you can buy, a roll from McMaster Carr that will do, there's enough there to do a whole set of 4 timpani, and there's no Teflon on these older timpani. The newer timpani come with the Teflon rim, makes it just nice and smooths out the pedal, all that kind of stuff. So you can take these older timpani and actually put Teflon tape on them. And so when we get to tuning and changing a head and all that kind of good stuff, that's where I talk about Teflon tape. That's the time to decide if you want to upgrade the feel of your timpani. Yeah, like I said, the feel on the pedal is just so much smoother, all that kind of great stuff. The polishing. So in the case of the side view here, okay, here is a dent. Let me rotate it over. So here's a dent that looks like this. This is all dark and tarnished. This was the peak of one of the we took out. I pre-polished before I started right here what this great add-on that I made from Dan King's clinic. This does this. So basically how this works, so just put it on there, and I have it on low. And I'm just adding pressure. Letting the vibration do the work. You can see it starting to happen here on the bottom already. I'll go ahead and turn it off. I'll grab my chamois, or my microfiber, I should say. And there we are. That spot where all the lacquer basically cracked off from that dent, yeah, it's all shiny and everything now, but we can spot lacquer over that. If the director doesn't want you to touch it, and just, again, that's all of their choice, but I'm going to demonstrate a few things that you can do. So now you can spot lacquer. The much smaller spots I would do brush lacquer on, something like this. Do, you know, the rattle can of Nicholas lacquer for some touch-up. So thanks for hanging out with me through this entire All Things Timpani series. I appreciate you hanging out and taking the time to watch my videos. Leave me feedback in the descriptions. Glad to be of service to everybody and share what I can. Like I said, it's all the way I do things, not necessarily the right, wrong, or indifferent, but that's what I've done. And you know, if you take one or two things away from what I do, that's why I'm doing it, is just try to help the common good of everything percussion, and for all of the great people out there that work on musical instruments. So again, thank you for hanging out with me through this series. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you'd like a copy of my book, check it out on NAPBIRT.org, and I'll see you around on another set of videos. We're going to go ahead and take on a project today from our book. So open to All Things Timpani. All Things Timpani can be located on page 50 of my book. And what we're going to tackle today is the issue of measuring for a timpani head correctly. And I've come up with a tool that you can make that can help you accurately measure and order that head, and also be able to level the head when it comes time to leveling the head. This tool will help you do that. And it will also have the ranges for each kettle so that you will be able to tune. And so here's the measuring section on page 51, and I'll flip here. Here's the actual tool. There's a wooden version of it and an aluminum version of it. I have both of them in here in the book. It's page 58 and 59. And so I'm going to show you how these are made and talk to you about how they work and how they'll help you. Not only help you in your shop, but they'll help you when it comes time for a band director that calls you and says, I need timpani heads, and they have no idea what size they are. This tool will help that band director. I'll also share with you that there's a portable version of this, or a non-wood or non-aluminum, to where they can take it to their band rooms. What I'm trying to say is something that you can give them to take to their band room for measuring. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, in this segment, we're going to talk about all the tools and materials and things you're going to need. So first of all, we'll talk about what's here on my red mat. Like I said, on page 58 is the wooden version, and page 59 is the aluminum version. So for the aluminum version, you actually have a couple of options. I bought my aluminum from McMaster-Carr. A lot of the parts that I'll share with you are all McMaster-Carr. So I have, back here, I have an aluminum version. So this one's not finished yet, but I'm just showing you the aluminum. This is 1/4 inch thick aluminum by 1 inch wide by 3 feet long. So that's the silver aluminum version. And the silver aluminum version, the McMaster-Carr number is 8975K596. And all these different things I'll make sure to post in the bottom of this video. The other one, I haven't played with it yet, is I bought some black anodized, same dimensions, from McMaster-Carr. And it is number 7083T26. This one right here, this was just my prototype. I went to the hardware store and got some 1/8x1 aluminum from Home Depot, I think this one, or Ace Hardware. Anyway, eighth inch thick. Like I said, the prototype is too thin. I had to go to 1/4 inch, but this is my prototype. All right, that's the aluminum. Next is just a basic yardstick. As you can see back here, and I'll lift it up a little bit. This is just a Lowe's standard yardstick, and you can make this project out of that yardstick. So that's what we have here. And then in the intro, I was speaking of portable versions of this stick. This is just a paper version that can be made and folded up and handed to a band director. This one here. And then this other one, because again, I'm a percussionist, I have some leftover white drum laminate, what wraps around the outside of the drum wrap. And so I make these also out of the thin laminate to give to band directors for measuring. And these here, the band directors are really good about it. They return them. You know, you do what works for you in your shop. But these are some portable ones where they can actually take them to their band room, lay them across the timpani, and get their measurement. Okay, so there's the aluminum, there's the wood. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and bring into view here some of the screws that I use. So these are knurled screws, 1.5 inches long. This is my preferred one in the beginning. This is what I settled on with my tool. Much bigger knurled handle, and it actually has a pinpoint tip. Okay, so my preferred one, McMaster card number 9007 9A546. That's my preferred one. And the reason why I preferred it is this tip. When it comes to leveling the head, especially from tension rod to tension rod, that little step gives you a really nice focal point for when it touches the rim. And again, I'll show that in another video when it comes to actually leveling the head. We're just worried about making the tool today. And then the knob that will be needed, just a basic brass knob. And again, if you have a lathe, you can turn all these on your lathe if you wish. But the brass knob is a McMaster card number 5125K21. Quarter 20 thread on all of these, 1.5 inches long, and 3/4 diameter knurled knob. So there's the knobs, and I'll set that aside. So other things you will end up needing for the project is you'll need a helicoil, quarter 20 helicoil, and you'll need the helicoil if you make the wooden version. You will not need the helicoil if you have the aluminum version. The aluminum version, obviously, you'll be threading right into the aluminum. Okay, and I'll explain why you need the wood need the helicoil in the wood, pardon me. The other thing you'll need is you'll need a paint pen or Sharpie of choice. Sharpies, the Sharpie thin point for the wood, okay, the ultra fine or thin point Sharpie. And then the thin paint pens for the aluminum, for the markings. So your choice on that. Okay. Next things, for drilling the hole in the aluminum, you'll need a 13/64 drill bit. So just go ahead and you'll get yourself a 13/64 drill bit. I use a spring punch for punching all my holes. You'll need a countersink, not necessarily the countersink, but to deburr the aluminum just a little bit so then you can start your thread. And then for the aluminum version, a quarter 20 tap. Okay? All right, so if you don't want to buy anything from McMaster Car, so like I said earlier, this is a knob that I made on my lathe, and this is the McMaster Car knob. So depending on what you want to do, but 1.5 inches has worked the best. It gives you the most throw. Shorter versions, maybe some old drum screws and stuff, they're too short and they don't really work well, whatever they may be. The only thing drum-wise that I've been able to recycle is the tone control knob. If you have an old tone control knob, it's long enough, so you can use that and thread it. They're not quarter 20, they're usually like 6 millimeter. Just check it and change the thread tap accordingly. Okay, but you need at least, like I said, 1.5 inches. So this is just an old tone control knob I could have used also. All right, so let's talk about getting started with the wooden one. So I'm going to grab a wooden one from the back. Okay, the first thing I did to make room to write on all of the sides of the ruler, I had to sand this off. So I just used my palm sander, and as you can see, I started right here, and I'm sanding away all of the extra writing that is along the yardstick. So you get that all nice and clean. You can see I've sanded one right here to demonstrate and show you. You're going to sand it all nice and clean. Here's part way, okay? So you want to make sure that you clean up your yardstick. All right. So from there, from that point, you will start putting your measurements onto the yardstick. Oh, I kind of got ahead of myself. Pardon me. We'll need to drill our through hole. Okay, so I got ahead before we do our markings. If you get ahead, that's fine. It's not going to be like super tragic. Okay, so as you can see, here's my completed one with the helicoil. So I've drilled my 13/64 hole in the wood. And with your helicoil kit, it comes with a helicoil tap and the insert tool. Okay. So you drilled your hole. You're going to cut your threads into the wood. Okay. Once you cut your threads into the wood, you then take your helicoil and you thread it into the wood. And then what you do is you make sure, and I'll hold it on its side, and you're going to make sure that the helicoil is evenly on the top and the bottom. Just make sure it's even. Then go ahead and take your insert tool out. And once you take your insert tool out, again, you're going to be even and flat and flush on the top and flat and flush on the bottom. Now, the reason why we need to have the helicoil in there is that if we were to use a double nut, like I've set up here, a 1/4-inch nut on the top and the bottom gets in the way of what it's going to be used for in leveling the head. So for accuracy, we need to be having threads through here so that we don't use a bottom nut, but we use the top knurled knob to clamp it in place. So we don't want that. This is why we use the helicoil in the wood. Okay, so back to here, we're flush on the top and flush on the bottom. Everything's good. Now to lock this in place, just grab your favorite super glue. Doesn't matter. Grab your favorite super glue, crazy glue, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to put a dab in a circle of crazy glue, super glue, around the top and the bottom. Let it set aside to dry, and that will lock that helicoil into the wood. Now what you might have to do after it's dry, which I have to do almost every time, is a little bit of that super glue gets in the threads. So I take a 1/4 thread and just clean the threads out to make it nice and clean and smooth so that the knob will go through. So now everything's nice and smooth. And this is why we don't want that nut on the bottom. We want that knob on the top, because now the knob locks our depth for seating and leveling our head across from lug to lug, tension rod to tension rod. Okay, and again, I'll demonstrate that in a different video, the whole leveling and how all this works. Okay, so that's what you're looking for in the wooden one. Okay, all right, so I'll set the wooden ones aside. And we got our helicoil installed, all that kind of good stuff. You only need that for the wood. All right, let's talk about aluminum. All right, same thing. You're going to drill a hole that 13/64, and I believe I might have skipped it, but you are placing that hole 1 inch from the one end. So 1 inch in. So at the 35-inch mark, I have my yardstick laying here next to it. So centered, 1 inch in. And you'll use your spring punch. You'll drill it. You'll take just a light bevel with your beveling tool, and then go ahead and put your 1/4-20 in. Okay? So once you have that in, all threaded and clean and everything, and don't forget to use your cutting oil to help cut your thread smoothly. Okay? This one I have the narrow on here. You might end up liking the narrow one, just depends. I like the bigger one because I got bigger hands. But again, so now this threads in, and then I can clamp it down with the clamping knob. And as you can see, the reason why is you're going to come through there. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside in the back. All right, let's talk about marking. The marking of the head is going to go, pardon me, flip it as if you can read it, but I'll at least get it the correct direction. The markings are going to be in correlation with the Evans and Remo numbers. So like for instance, this is the Adams section, okay? And if I look at a 20-inch bowl size on an Adams, it is a 2300 on the chart. Okay, so now, if I line this up, you'll see that that each inch lines up with each mark in its 2100 or 2500 for 25-inch, etc. So what I'm getting at is if you look at the Remo chart, it's a 2300. On the Evans chart, it's a 23, meaning that they work together except for Evans drops the zeros. So here we are. The directions on here. So this is what the band director would get on one of the disposable or portable ones down here, the paper or the drum wrap. Set those aside. So they would get this one, and you can remove the head, place the arrow on the outside flesh hoop with the Timpani head rim where my arrow is right there, and where this number lines up on the other side is the actual Remo or Evans number that you order. So again, remember, the Evans uses the first two numbers and drops the zeros, and the Remo is the 4-digit number. Okay? So there's how they accurately measure. So this being the aluminum one, this is in your shop for you to be able to grab and do that at a moment's notice. Now, that's one part of the tool. Flipping it over, now you're going to go ahead and use these marks over here when it comes time to go ahead and level the head and tune the head. So on this side, at the 20-inch mark, the 22 and a half, 23, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30, and 32 are all the different Timpani bowl sizes. And so now here are all of the ranges. And again, ranges are subject to a whole step or a half step difference on the top end or bottom end. But here are your common ranges, okay? In some cases, like here on a 22 and a half, which is a Premier Timpani, E flat to B flat, I've made that notation in parentheses P, so I remember that that's associated with a Premier Timpani. And down here on a 20-inch, you have your Ludwig A to D, or you have your Yamaha E to C. So where there's differences, I've notated them, so this is all on one side. So again, you have a tool here that is multifunctional, and we're going to go ahead and pause here, and I'll go to setting up a quick demonstration of how the leveling part works, but I'm not going to go into great detail, but I at least want to attach a sample to this video so that you further understand where this tool is going, besides helping with measuring for timpani head size and helping your band directors out. So we'll pause and we'll move over to an actual timpani. Okay, so we've moved to the timpani with the tool now, and I have a close-up of the whole idea of how this works. So in the close-up, I have it lit up here with the flashlight. The whole idea is once you get your tension rods seated and you're starting to pull tension up and things like that, and you need to count exactly how many revolutions, is as you're starting to get mission critical on how many more turns you need to get to that balance point, that's where this tool comes in. Okay, so you can see for this particular Yamaha timpani I'm using for demonstration is this one here. I have it all leveled and everything. It's all great, so I'll be able to mess with it a little bit for you. I have it set to where the pointer is just touching the top of the rim. So now that's my number one lug. Now the next thing I will do is I will take the tool, and then you'll see in the split screen, I'll grab the tool and I'm going to pick it up from that number one lug, and it's set and it's tight. Now I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to reverse it over to the other lug and set it out. And now I'm going to take my flashlight, or if you're in a better lit room, you'll see it, and you will look and see. And like I said, I've already set this timpani, but for this whole demonstration is if the timpani rim, if you got it too many turns, there's going to be a gap between that pointer. So then you need to loosen the screw until it comes up and touches the pointer. Now you know lug number one and number two are exactly level with each other. Then you go from lug 2, now go ahead and go from 2 to 3. Check. 3 to 4. And again, either tightening or loosening with the lug wrench until you get it to just barely touch. So I'll go back here to where I was at on the close-up cam. There you go. And I'll try to demonstrate this for you. So if I was to tighten it up too much, I should start to develop a gap as you can see. There's about 1/8 of an inch or so gap between the pointer of my gauge, of my Timpani tool, and that. So that's what I mean, is as you go around from lug to lug to lug to lug, you're going to be able to match everything to your number one lug. And you'll know that that tension is exact. It was the way I was able to figure out, okay, how do I do this? And I actually kind of stole this idea from NASCAR and doing race cars and bump steer and caster camber and all the front end geometry when my family used to go racing. So just to be able to take a simple jig and be able to replicate from one lug to the other. Okay, so as I said, so now all I got to do is loosen it up. And when I'm working on Timpani like this, I have 2 lug wrenches. I have 2 lug wrenches so that I can move things together. Just kind of helps speed things up. Okay, so that's the idea of how that part of it works. And then while I have it here, I'll pause and I'll reset it with an overhead shot of how the measurement works. And I'll kind of go over how the whole measurement thing. And we'll be able to conclude this part of the video. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's an overhead view. We're going to wrap up this video with showing you the whole Timpani measurement part of the jig. So I have all 3 of them laying here. We'll go ahead and just kind of walk through them so you can kind of see an example. So here's the drum covering. Again, you can remove the Timpani head for the absolute most accurate, but you can also kind of cheat because we all know the flesh hoop hides right underneath the corner of where I'm showing over here on this lug right here. So you can point the arrow right to the very edge, and you go right over to the other lug, and this is a 3100. So you would order a 3100 lug to lug, measurement to measurement. Okay? So this is the one that you could roll up and give to your band director. Okay? And again, on the back side, if you want to make these for your band director to keep, you could even make them a wooden one without the leveling mechanism on it, just with the measurements. So anyway, there's that one. Okay? Again, same thing, wooden yardstick, lining our arrow up to the edge, and over here we have a 3100. And finally, our aluminum one. And so with that, showed you how to make a tool to help making your tuning and head leveling easier. On the opposite side, it has all your tuning ranges and all of the Remo/Evans numbers for your common Timpani head ordering sizes. In this video, what we're going to focus on from the All Things Timpani section of my book is the tools, the materials, and the supplies that I use and that I suggest throughout this section of the book. Again, these are all my suggestions and the things that I've used over the years. By all means, use what works best for you. And I'm just going to kind of go around, and we're going to start with the section in the Timpani section about measuring the head. And I use my Timpani jig. You'll be able to find this video on how to make this Timpani jig here. And we use this to measure for a head, for the Remo number and the Evans number. And it gives us the measurement of the bowl, the head number, as I said, and when you flip it over, it gives you the Timpani ranges based on the bowl size and what you're going to be going to do on the tuning there. So that's the measuring of the head, finding the head size, and all that kind of good stuff from the measuring section. Okay. From there, basically we move to the items for changing a head and servicing the Timpani. So I have a wide range of things that I use for changing a head. Again, we get our measurement and change our head, and we need lug wrenches. I suggest 2 so that you can put them on opposite sides and keep things equal. Make sure that you have the appropriate key. Adams is much larger. Changing the head, you're going to need a tuner. And then on the safety side of changing the head, you'll want a 2x4 block of wood that you can put under the toe of the pedal so it keeps the pedal from slamming and possibly breaking off the tip of the pedal. So we use a block of wood for that. Also in changing the head, you're going to need some various lubricants. So you remove the tension rods, and I use toothbrushes and shop brushes, and I use either like a carb cleaner in a aluminum pie pan like I have up front here, and clean all the old grease off. If you have an ultrasonic, that works great. You can also put it just in a bucket with some degreaser. I use ZEP 707, the purple 707, and basically so you can clean all these things up. Some of the more harsher chemicals like the carb cleaner, I really use up underneath the pedal mechanisms if I need to turn the Timpani over and do the pedal mechanisms and things like that and strip old grease off. But those are some of those things. Like I said, degreaser, carb cleaner, those kinds of things, and the brushes that I use. So you'll need that for servicing when you change the head. And then when you go to put the tension rods back in, a little dip of petroleum jelly, the tip of the tension rod, and also I use the Bach slide grease, the red. This is what I use on the horns, and it works great on the tension rods. So that's the head changing and servicing. When you have the bowl open, when you have the head off and the bowl open, you're going to use air compressor to blow any lint out, wipe it out, various shop rags, wipe it out, window cleaner, clean the inside out, spray with the compressed air, the spider gears, those kinds of things. I use all those kinds of things in the process. Okay, so I think that kind of covers lubrication. The spider mechanism, I use Tri-Flow because it doesn't attract dust or dirt as much. And I have 2 forms of it, the aerosol can And then I have the micro oiler that you can also get from Triflow to get in the spider gears and nooks and crannies. So all those kinds of things I use for lubrication and things like that. WD-40, possibly, if that's all you got. But I tend to gravitate towards the Triflow products, okay, for lubing all the moving parts so they don't squeak and everything. You flip it over, pedal mechanism maintenance. There's the greased areas of the spring and all of the counter joints and things like that. This is a high temp grease that I use. I just take the shop brush, dig out what I need, and apply it in the underneath in the pedal mechanisms. This is high temperature, so high temperature climate area. This will work good for high temperature climate area. And then for other uses, or another idea that I do use is this is the Reese ball lube for your hitch ball. It's really good. It's a white lithium base. Again, just scoop it out with the shop brush, apply it where you need it. Okay, so these are the two types of grease that I do use, and I pay attention to what kind of product is on the Timpani when I'm inspecting it. If it's the heavier grease, I try to stick with it, and if it's the lighter grease, so I just kind of pay attention to that, and I pay attention to the climate. If it's too hot, it just gets all watery and melted and ends up puddling or dropping on the floor of the band room if you apply too much and it's hot. So those products. Also, I can never say enough, download, Google search for the manual when you're doing service on your Timpani heads. This will answer, I should say, a lot of questions. So there's the manual. Do that when you can. Okay, so that was more or less items for changing the head, servicing the Timpani, things like that. Tuning and ranges. Again, those that may have watched, or you will watch, my tuning jig video, there is the jig itself right there. Okay, with the tuning ranges on it. There's also a chart in my book for that also. Let's talk about dent removal a little bit. You see various hammers in front of me that I use, and back here I also have my magnetic dent ball system. So we'll start with the hammers. I use a product from McMaster-Carr to cover my hammers. You're dealing with a copper bowl. You don't want to scratch it. You don't want to try to flake any lacquer or coating that is on the bowl. So this is just a slip film adhesive that I put on my hammers for dent work. It's from McMaster-Carr, and this will be in the description. I'll put all of the things that I purchased and different things in the description in the bottom of this video. The other thing, that I missed, excuse me, I'll backtrack just one second, on the Timpani bowl is I have my Teflon tape over here. Not all Timpani come with that new style Teflon covering around the bearing edge or lip of the bowl. So you can buy this product also from McMaster-Carr. I'll include the link in the bottom. This is an adhesive backed Teflon tape, and it's about $18 a roll, and it will do an entire set of 4 Timpani. So I missed that. I apologize. Go back to that. You can get that from McMaster-Carr. We were on to dent removal. Dent removal tools and materials. I was talking about my hammers and my slip adhesive. I cover them all. So I have two types of dead blows here, and these are just basic dead blows from Harbor Freight. Okay, this is the 1 pound dead blow from Harbor Freight, and that is the slip covering that I put over one face, and so now I'm able to safely work on the copper bowl. This is another Harbor Freight dead blow that has two angles, a horizontal and a vertical angle. Again, covering the ends with the slip tape. A tip here on the slip tape, the adhesive is really good, but when you go to put it on here, you'll want to take some acetone fingernail polish remover, and you'll want to wipe it down really good, and it'll adhere really well to the dead blow. You'll notice on this dead blow, I followed it up with some electrical tape around the edge just to help hold it on there. Like I said, the adhesive is good, but it just helps hold it on there when under shock. Here's another Harbor Freight dead blow. This is supposed to be the non-marking side, and for the most part, it is. It has a white powder, but on the black side that does leave a mark, I put the protection on there. Another Harbor Freight is their body and fender Delrin nylon. And then this is an old Craftsman that I've had forever. You can see it's pretty beat up. I've used this one pretty religiously. This is the old Craftsman model. This is what I actually really started with and got accustomed to. And I end up gravitating back to this, even though I have all the other stuff. We all have tools that we gravitate back to, you know, that we feel are our tried and true or our old friend. This is the old Craftsman. It has rubber on one side and nylon on the other, and of course our Rawhide. Again, using those in dent removal. Talk a little bit about the magnetic dent ball. It came up, magnetic dent ball came up in a question in one of my other clinics. It works. I didn't have a lot of time to spend on elaborating, but it works mainly on the smaller dents, not the larger, huge, like dessert plate dent size that just boom in the side. The magnetic dent balls work really well in the smaller areas. Okay, further along with dents, I've customized some things over time. Sometimes you'll need just various size wood blocks, 2x4, 1x2, whatever, just a few things. Sometimes you need just some different size blocks to use as a wooden dolly when you're hammering on the inside, and you have a dolly on the outside when you need to move the metal around. Otherwise, most of the time you're feeling with your hand and feeling how that dent's moving. Another thing that I use is hockey pucks on the outside as a dolly, okay, to dolly out the dent. And then this is a modified hockey puck. You'll notice that I've drilled a 1-inch hole offset of it. What that does is that gives me some shock absorption, and it's not as rigid as the solid hockey puck, so I can hold it up to the edge of the copper bowl and work on the inside and have a little bit softer feel and workability with that. Acts like a leaf spring or a shock absorber in dollying out the dent. So that's something that I've come across in my time. This is a wood 2x4 that I've sanded and modified up. It has peel and stick craft felt around the outside, so that if I have a highly finished bowl like this Yamaha over here, you know, the Ludwig over here has seen better days. Most of the time it's got so many scratches on it, the band director's just happy to get the dents out of it, make the sound improve on it. You know, we don't want to put any more scratches in there than we have to. But again, that's what the craft belt's for, is making sure that we keep scratches off. If I get real worried about any of the wood products that I use on a highly finished bowl like the Yamaha behind me, I'll of course wrap felt around these, or I'll use the slip tape. Okay. The tape that you can buy from the brass protection tape that comes in a 2-inch roll that you can get from Allied or Botaw, you know, all of them have it. That works great too to cover up this stuff in a temporary fashion for your dent work. Okay. The other things that I have customized and made over time is various nylon, Delrin angles. Okay, so where these came from is actually, this is an old cutting board that I found at the flea market. So I found a couple of them actually, one that was 3/8 of an inch thick cutting board and one that was a 1/2 inch thick cutting board. And I just took the cutting board and I cut out the various pieces. The cutting board's made out of nylon, some of them are made out of Delrin, and they work great for these kinds of things that you're just going to cut up and need. So what these shapes are is these are shapes to get underneath the curved rim or lip of the bowl. So let's say for some reason something hit the lip, put a little dent in it, and you got to work that dent up. These are all various angles to be able to get it up underneath that and be able to hammer up on it. Okay. Then there's another tool from Red Wing, and this is their brass bell lip pulling tool that they show you how to make on their YouTube channel, on the Red Wing YouTube channel. So yes, this works great for the purpose that they intended it for, but I found the use for it for timpani. So you can actually hook this on the lip of the timpani bowl and use your puller and pull that dent up on the lip of the timpani bowl. So this Red Wing tool doubles as a lip pulling tool for the timpani. If you haven't made one and you haven't gone to the Red Wing YouTube channel, I'll try to find it for you and connect it to the description and the link in the bottom of this video. It's easy to make. It took me maybe like 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes to make it. Okay? And it hangs right next to my slide hammer on my pegboard. I think I covered everything, all the different products, all the different things I use from the Windex all the way down. I hope this is helpful. Like I said, if you have some other products that you use, great. But this is kind of the core set of materials and things that I use for dent removal. Again, if you're interested in my jig, look for that video on my YouTube channel and make that. I hope this was informative. Thank you for watching. And for my book, go to NAPBIRT.org for purchasing my book. Again, thank you for watching, and like and subscribe. Thank you again.